Good afternoon. I'm back with another video. Let's see, share. Excuse me, I'm reading something on the screen here. Stuff pops up sometimes. Anyway, haven't made one in a while and been seeing some posts on my Facebook page that just got me thinking again about these issues and how to address them. I know this is going to piss off some of my right wing friends, but I've never let that stop me before. I managed to irritate those on the left enough. I figure every now and then I have to irritate somebody on the right. But this addresses the issue, among other things, of how both sides, left and right, love to indoctrinate. They love to push their way of thinking, their ideals on others. Now, of course, if you spend any time at all watching the news, you know the left loves to do it. They'll push their agenda on you in a second in so many different ways. And incumbent upon those on the right is this idea that they need to fight that as opposed to participating in it in their own right. So both sides do it. Both sides want to pass laws that control how you think and what you think and when you think it. But they like to act like it's only those other guys that do that stuff. Now, I'm speaking specifically of recent posts and memes that I've seen from friends of mine. And I know this is going to make them angry, but, okay. Then come back at me with some facts. Don't just, get pissed off and call me names or whatever. They talk about we need to reinstall prayer in school, and we need to have kids doing the Pledge of Allegiance again. All right, well, let's address that. Let's just start with the prayer thing first. First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Anybody remember that? Let me read part of it for you. Amendment 1, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Okay, that's innocuous enough, and I would think specific enough. Public schools is what I'm going to be addressing, because if you're a private school, then simply by virtue of being private, you can promote and push whatever religion you like. In fact, most private schools in this country are of a religious bent, so that goes without saying. But if you're talking about public schools, my question would be, what religion? If it becomes mandated, as many of my right-wing friends would like to see it, then you have to pick one. Either that, or you have to be willing to go through a whole litany of different prayers based on different religions, and the fact that many of the students in those schools are of those religions. If you pick one and you mandate it through law, it becomes a requirement, then isn't that the government establishing a religion? And if you read about the founding of our nation and why we have a First Amendment and religious freedom, it's because the government at that time, the British government, was actually taxing people to pay for the establishment of the Anglican Church here in the colonies, as well as to support the Anglican Church in the United Kingdom. So, and if you didn't pay that tax, by the way, or if you chose to use some other religion, then you were either fined or imprisoned for it. And that's why many of our founding fathers wanted to establish this idea that you don't have to be of a particular religion. No established religion. Got it? Get it? Understand it? Now, I know there are plenty of you out there who think prayer is wonderful and it's needed and we should do it, and that's fine. It just depends on where and when you do it. Public schools. You either allow all religions in or you exclude all religions. If it's a private school, like a Catholic school or any Protestant sect, Fine. You want to have prayers? Go for it. You're a private school. You have that right. But we need to think about that, because now you're starting to talk about mandating something, which is exactly what the left wants to do with their ideology. They want to mandate things. They want to make it a law. They want to force you to do it. And if you don't, you're going to be punished. Is that really how you want to do this? All right. I don't know that I need to say any more on that, but, again, some of you are going to disagree with me. That's fine. Now, Pledge of Allegiance. Have you thought about that? I find this especially perplexing when it comes from my Southern heritage friends. The Pledge of Allegiance. I pulled up so many different pages here. Let me see if I can find the one I'm looking for here. The Pledge of Allegiance was written by he was labeled a Christian socialist. Socialist. Hey, all my right-wing friends, socialist. Do we like socialism? Do you like socialism? You don't. You rail against it every chance you get. Yet you keep pushing this idea that we need to get the Pledge of Allegiance back in schools. And that Pledge of Allegiance was written by a socialist. And of course, that pledge has changed several times over the years. And I'm going to kick myself now because I can't find the one I wanted to find for you. But it talks about, I pledge allegiance to my flag. Now, you remember how the Declaration of Independence was originally written, and they changed life, liberty, and property to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So it's not unusual for these things to change over the years. But it started out my flag, not the U.S. flag, my flag. And then that would later be changed. But it was written by Francis to help a magazine called, oh, come on, Floyd, The Youth's Companion. There it is. And Francis Bellamy was asked to be a writer for that magazine. This magazine was aimed at children. It was written, and he wrote the pledge in 1892 during what was called the progressive era of American history. Progressive era. What else do we associate the word progressive with, all of my right-wing friends? Think about it. And he was doing it to promote the idea of having a flag in every school across the country. He was helping sell flags. Another part of the pledge is, and this is where it really fascinates me when my Southern heritage friends chime in, one nation, indivisible. Well, now, what does indivisible mean? It means you can't break it up. You can't take it apart. Is that your understanding of our founding documents? Is our nation, are the states supposed to be indivisible? You can't separate them. You can't secede. Didn't we fight a war about that? And yes, the Union won the war. I get it. Lincoln did what he wanted to do. But does that change the fact that the Declaration of Independence says what it says about casting off tyrannical government and creating a new one better suited to the people? See, guys, what gets me is this patriotism thing. When you start talking about patriotism and being patriotic, it seems to me, and you can challenge me if you like, it seems to me that all thinking stops. It's about how you feel. Isn't that what the left does? Isn't it the left in this country that's all about feelings and doesn't consider any thinking or facts? Yeah, I'm patriotic. I love being an American. I love being a Virginian. I love the idea of this country, this experiment in self-government. I've read the founding documents. Now, I don't read them every day, but I have them. You can see the books. I actually do read the books. They're not just there for decoration. So I understand this concept, especially the Declaration of Independence, about casting off tyrannical government. Well, friends, Southerners especially, we've heard in recent years people talking about secession. Why, hell, even recently, Texas. We've talked about how Texas should break off from the Union because they have to protect the southern border because the federal government's certainly not doing it. So the idea of secession hasn't gone away. Well, where does that idea come from? Did we just dream it up, make it up out of whole cloth? Or does it come from somewhere? So this idea that we're indivisible. And of course, later in the 1950s, we get under God, because that had to be added too, to please some people. But think about who wrote it, why he wrote it, when it was written, and what it says. Think about the words. Don't just blindly recite it and think, well, I'm patriotic now. I said the Pledge of Allegiance. Well, what does it mean? What did the words mean? And do you remember, have any of you ever seen this? Some of you I'm sure have, but you can go on YouTube and find it. Just type in original Pledge of Allegiance and see how they start like this and wind up like this. Does that look familiar to you? Have you seen that anywhere else? So this stopped and it just stayed here. I don't know. It ticks me off to a certain degree because, again, it goes back to think it through. Think about what you're saying. Think about what the words mean, and think about why you're saying it. Yes, be patriotic. I love the idea of being patriotic, but patriotism is not something that you mandate. It's not something that you indoctrinate. It's something that comes about organically through the idea that, I've been asked to think. I'm going to teach these children in these schools how to think so that they come to the conclusions on their own. So that eventually, after hearing certain lessons and then looking around them and taking in what they see and hear and comparing that to the lesson and how it meshes, how it blends together. Well, yeah, I like being patriotic. I want to be patriotic. Nobody had to tell me to do it. Nobody had to force me to do it. I came to it on my own because I thought about what I have seen and heard and done and read. But again, both sides do it. Left likes to indoctrinate. The right likes to indoctrinate. They don't want you to think. They just want you to do what you're told. And if you don't, well, by God, we're going to find a law to make you do it. Calm down just a minute here. I took acting classes. Anyway, so when it comes to prayer in school, and again, if you're a praying person, fine. I got nothing against that. I've had people actually offer to pray for me. And even though I'm an atheist, I don't take offense at that. I thank them because I know it's coming from a good place. So it doesn't make me angry. But when you start telling other people that they have to pray, especially if they're children, and their minds are still malleable and they haven't learned how to think yet, so they just do what they're told, yeah, I do have a problem with that. And when it comes to the Pledge of Allegiance, when I was teaching, as you would expect, you had some students that would do it and others who didn't want to. The only thing I required of those students who did not want to do the pledge is sit quietly while the others do it. Be respectful. If you don't want to say it, that's fine. I'm not going to make you. Because if you're going to say the Pledge of Allegiance, if you're going to say a prayer, you have to mean it. In order for it to mean anything, In order for it to have any import at all, you have to mean it. And if you're simply doing it because you've been mandated, because you've been told you have to, and if you don't, you're going to be in trouble, then it doesn't mean anything. Is that just me? Am I wrong? You tell me. Let me have it. Come at me. But I don't think anytime you force somebody to do something, that's going to have the desired result. I grew up being told, you have to do the pledge, you have to say a prayer in school. Then, at sporting events, you have to stand and put your hand over your heart for the anthem. And as I got older and started actually thinking about those things and thinking about the words and thinking about what they meant and where they were coming from and how I was being made to do it, it just didn't sit right with me. So this all gets back to, especially when it comes to school children, I would rather we teach them how to think rather than tell them what to think. If you think I'm wrong, you let me know. But that's how I see it. So I just felt like I had to comment on that because I'm starting to see these posts and these memes again from a lot of my friends on Facebook. And I understand where it comes from. I understand their frustration. And look, not for 1 minute do I pretend that there's not something wrong in this country. There's a lot of stupid shit going on. And you can attribute it to a lot of different things. But if you're going to fix it, do you fix it by becoming that which you despise, by doing the same things that the other side does? Or do you do it by offering up all the information that's available, teaching people how to think, and let them come to their own conclusions? And then if you get patriotism from that, isn't it a more sincere form of patriotism? Isn't it more in the heart? Don't you mean it more? That's just my take on it. If you want to disagree with me, fine, let me hear it. But I just felt like I needed to get that off my chest. Y'all have a good day.